Hello and welcome to Bella Star Astrology. I am your host, Stella. And on this channel, we discuss all things astrology and how you can use it in your everyday life, from monthly horoscopes to educational videos. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you can be notified as soon as there's a new video posted. But without further ado, let's get into the monthly horoscope for the sign of Aquarius for September 2022. Now, my Aquariuses. This is an intense month. Your eighth house is getting activated a lot. And, you're going to have some issues around finances. But let's really dive deeper into what is going on this month, starting with Venus entering Virgo in the eighth house on September 4th. And so the first thing that we have is this expansion of Venus in a sign that it's already agitated in a house it's already agitated in, the eighth house. And it doesn't do well in the eighth house just because it's not really like the house that it rules in the first place. And Virgo is the sign before Libra. So it's like, it's this double-edged sword. It's in the house after the traditional house it rules. It's in the house before or it's in the sign before the traditional house it rules. And it's just a complicated little mess for you, especially with it being in the eighth house. So what you want to do this month is just be careful around your finances. Venus is going to expand those expenses. It's going to be maybe some, a head to head about some losses you've had, about some issues you've had around money, about some underlying issues of why you've had those issues around money. Whether it's dealing with inheritance, taxes, etc. It will give you some grace to have, some knowledge about what you're doing, approach it in a better way, but don't approach it in an emotional way because that will just lead you down the wrong path, especially as Mercury will be going retrograde at the end of the month, really highlighting some more of those issues. So really when Venus enters there, face your fears, face the issues that you're having. It is the planet of luck, but it is in Virgo, busybody sign. It's in the eighth house, which is the sign of just like, darkness. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I am a Scorpio myself, so it's not a big deal, but it's just the issues around that eighth house must be addressed. And Venus will either help you address it or exacerbate it until you address it because, it's going to be just sitting there, making you spend money, forcing you to face those things. Venus is a very lucky planet, but just like every planet has two sides, so does Venus, which is the side of the overspender, the side of the insecurities around love and money. And this house deals with a lot of love issues, whether it's, your intimate relationships and the intimacy you have with them, etc. On the flip side, Venus being here and dealing with intimacy issues could also be helped, as well as having more intimate encounters, which, wonderful for you if that's what you're looking for. But remember that it must lead to substance. And whilst I would say it could, it doesn't necessarily mean it will. So make sure it has some substance behind it, being as, you are an Aquarius, you take love a little bit more lightly, but all of these, questions that you have around it could be addressed if you just approach it in a more substantive way. Air signs, I understand it's not as deep as it should be, and maybe it's too deep for you sometimes, but with Venus being there, it could be that deep. So just explore those themes. Anyway, I've talked enough about Venus entering Virgo for you guys. It's a good thing. Just be careful about the dark side of it as well. Then Mercury goes retrograde in Libra on September 9th. This is highlighting your beliefs, the culture that you're living in, the travel that you're taking. This is a time where you might actually travel, where you might actually do something, but just be careful around that because as much as it's highlighting travel, Mercury was in there for a while. in the ninth house. Now it's highlighting the troubles that you might have, the issues with your transition. All you have to do when Mercury goes retrograde with any sign is look at the details. Make sure every one of the details is double checked, triple checked before you move, halfway across the country, or before you take a road trip, or before you fly. Like, check your passport is not going to expire in 3 months. Never fly with an about to expire passport while Mercury's in retrograde, because anything that could go wrong while Mercury is in retrograde probably will. And it's just asking you to do your due diligence, really. That's what I always say. I'm a Mercury ruled person, so I'm always going to say the same thing, but it's not always bad with Mercury retrograde. Anyway, that will be September 9th. Then the full moon enters into Pisces on September 10th. This is going to end something to do with your finances, with your money, with your income, with how you make money. You might be leaving a job, and because the ninth house is being activated, leaving a job and moving somewhere, or leaving a job to move somewhere, leaving a job to become a digital nomad. This is all the things. The philosophy around work and money could also be changing. So this Pisces full moon could activate those changes where you might be budgeting and actually follow the new budget that you've established, or the fruits of your labor might finally come into fruition, and you might see the results of how hard you've worked and what you've been able to accomplish with the work that you've done, et cetera, et cetera. And that full moon in Pisces is happening on September 10th. Then we move on, and we have the sun entering Libra on September 22nd, also known as the fall equinox. And again, the equinox is about shedding something, about letting something go, about taking in the fruits of what you've created, plants dying, etc. But while the sun's in Libra, again, more highlighting that ninth house energy of moving somewhere, leaving something, changing your belief systems. What are your belief systems? What are you trying to do with your life, etc.? And it could be exciting, as you might be learning something new. You might be growing into something. You might actually maybe start a course, as traditionally September is the month where a lot of schools start up in the northern hemisphere. So maybe you're, doing something different this month and starting at a university, etc. But it's going to highlight the education that you might need in order to move or transition forward with the beliefs that you already have. Then we move on, and Mercury goes retrograde in Virgo on September 23rd. And like I said, this activation of your eighth house is going to be difficult. Don't be afraid of the new things that Venus and Virgo did. Now the Mercury retrograde is going to do the same. And so highlighting this Mercury retrograde in your eighth house, like some of the things that are under the surface, or the things that you haven't dealt with, the taxes you haven't paid, the property issues that you haven't addressed, the way that you deal with the finances with your partner, all of these things need to be hashed out whilst Mercury is in retrograde. Or better yet, Mercury in retrograde is going to be like, hey, these are the problems you have. And they're going to highlight it. Let's say it's joint finances, like maybe something breaks down in your home and you're having an argument with your partner, because that Mercury retrograde could trigger that in the eighth house. That has to do with the finances and how you deal with the finances. And being that the full moon was just there, it could have a lot to do with what you decided whilst the full moon was hitting your second house. So the results could be maybe negative, and maybe you need to pivot those ideas. Maybe you need to make new plans, etc. And so Mercury retrograding in Virgo on September 23rd is going to be a life-changing energy that is going to push you to maybe make new contracts, new social contracts with your partner, and financial decisions that could really help you both and benefit you both in the long run. And so we are just trying to make sure that those issues are being addressed whilst Mercury is in retrograde. And then finally, new moon in Libra on September 24th. If you've done all the work, if you've done everything you could to build up those houses, to do what you can to improve yourself in those ninth house matters, this new moon is going to really help you to evaluate, hey, what are the things that I'm going to do from now on to make sure that the issues that arose while Mercury is in retrograde in your ninth house won't happen again. And I would sit down, I would set some intentions around maybe where you'd like to travel this year, what you'd like to do, how you'd like to change. Maybe you want to do more meditation and you want to study more of the principles of it, etc. This new moon will be a really good time for you to set those intentions, sit down, look at the way you can improve yourself in those ways. And if you have the travel bug, maybe set some intentions around where you'd like to go and what you'd like to do and how you'd like to be when you travel, etc. So then that was the new moon in Libra on September 24th. And finally, we have Venus entering Libra on September 29th. Now, Venus put a lot of pressure on your eighth house. It was very hard, probably, with all the financial matters that you had to deal with or had to spend money on. But now Venus is going to enter your ninth house in Libra. That's its own sign. This is a positive energy. If you set intentions under that new moon to travel, maybe one of the many things that you wrote down has an opportunity to come into life, whether it's moving to a new place or traveling to a new place or doing something different, traveling with friends, traveling with partners. All of those things are possible now that Venus has moved into your ninth house. Sit down and make a plan under the new moon and enjoy that Venus energy. Enjoy how you're going to be learning and growing throughout that Venus transit, right? So moving on, this has been the reading for September 2022 for Aquarius. I just want to say thank you for watching this video. Please click on the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to click the notification bell if you would like to hear every time a new video comes up, get notifications. And finally, I just want to say, please check out the playlist below for the rest of the signs for your sun, moon, and rising so that you can learn all about the astrology of this upcoming September for your sun, moon, or rising. Have a wonderful month.